So I was walking through a museum the other day, wandering through the Egypt section.
Ah, yes.
And it's always the same vibe, dim lighting, lots of stone, and people just kind of shuffling along reading those little placards.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped in front of a statue of Anubis. And you know the drill, god of the dead, jackal-headed deity, patron of embalmers.
Oh, standard summary.
Exactly. I just nodded, filed it under spooky funeral stuff, and moved on.
Hmm.
We all do that. We put them in these neat little boxes. Anubis is death. Osiris is a mummy. Case closed.
We do. It's the standard approach. We tend to view these figures as static idols, almost like characters in a primitive storybook about the afterlife.
Yeah.
We see the animal heads and all the gold, and we just assume it's, superstitious decoration.
Right. But then I started digging into this massive stack of research we have for today's deep dive, referencing some pretty dense esoteric analyses, translations from the Book of the Dead, and wow. I realize I haven't been looking at the statues, I've been looking past them. Because according to these documents, those museum labels aren't just simplifying things.
They're missing the entire point.
The entire point.
Right.
We are not just talking about funeral rites here, are we?
Not at all. If you look at the sources we have today, specifically the analysis of the Osirian myth and the symbolic anatomy of these figures, we are looking at something much more profound.
Okay.
These aren't just gods of the dead, they are maps. Detailed, symbolic maps for the evolution of human consciousness.
Maps for the living, not just the dead.
Yeah.
And that is the mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack the weird, specific details like why Anubis has wings inside his ears and the absolutely wild story of Osiris getting trapped in a chest.
It plays out like a thriller.
It really does.
Ah.
But every single plot point is actually a code for spiritual awakening.
Precisely. We need to move beyond that museum label understanding. We're going to explore the why. Why the jackal? Why the specific measurements of the chest? Why the missing phallus? It's a journey from the bio-robot of our physical existence to the luminous door of higher perception.
Okay, let's start with the star of the show, or at least the guy who greets you at the door. Anubis.
Right.
Standard view.
Right.
He's the spooky guy who hangs out in graveyards.
Right.
But the texts here call him Upuat, the opener of the ways.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds a lot more proactive than just tomb guard.
That title is key. Upuat. He isn't just guarding a tomb. He is opening a path for consciousness. And to understand how, you have to look really closely at that famous effigy from Tutankhamun's tomb.
You mean the ears?
The ears. You mentioned them earlier.
Yeah, this detail just blew my mind. The source points out that if you look inside the ears of that specific Anubis statue, they aren't just dog ears. They have these striations.
Like fine lines carved inside.
Yeah. And the text claims they look like wings.
Yeah.
Or feathers.
Yeah.
Now, is that just an artistic flourish, or is there a reason for putting bird parts in a dog's ear?
It is absolutely deliberate. They resemble the feathers of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and cosmic order.
Ma'at, right. The feather of truth.
Exactly. And in Egyptian symbolism, combining these elements indicates function. This isn't decoration. It symbolizes spiritual hearing.
Spiritual hearing.
In the esoteric tradition, Anubis represents the ability to hear the voice of the silence.
The voice of the silence. That sounds very mystical, but let's ground it. What does that actually mean? Are we talking about hearing voices or?
Think about it in terms of signal-to-noise ratio.
Yeah.
We live in a world of constant acoustic and sensory noise.
Right.
Anubis is associated with the winter solstice, the deepest point of darkness. In that darkness and that sensory deprivation, you stop listening to the noise of the outside world and start listening to the inner world.
Oh, okay. So it's like when you're in a soundproof room or a float tank.
Yeah.
When the external input cuts off, your internal processing gets louder?
Exactly. The winged ears suggest that his perception is aerial, spiritual, not just biological. He is tuning into the subtle vibrations that the physical ears miss.
So he's tuning into a different frequency, which connects to this other figure in the text, right? The Horus without eyes.
Horus Kentinerdi.
Which honestly sounds like a horror movie villain. Why take away his eyes?
It does sound intimidating, but again, you have to look past the literal. Without eyes doesn't mean blind in the sense of lacking sight.
So it's a metaphor.
It means he doesn't need organic eyes to see. If you remove the reliance on the physical optic nerve, what are you left with?
Imagination. Gut instinct.
You are left with direct perception, clairvoyance, inner vision. The text draws this parallel because Anubis and this form of Horus both function in the duat, the underworld, the unconscious.
Okay.
They are the forces that restore the senses. During the opening of the mouth ceremony, the goal wasn't just to let a mummy talk. It was to give the initiate the power to see in the dark.
So Anubis helps you hear the invisible, and this Horus helps you see the invisible. But here's where it gets really specific. The source talks about the geometry of the balance.
The psychostasia, yes.
Right.
The weighing of the heart.
Right, we've all seen that image. The feather on one side, the heart on the other. But the text says something so specific. It says Anubis's eyebrows represent the two arms of the scale. His eyebrows. Now, come on. Is that real symbolism, or is that just us looking at a statue and going, hey, that kind of looks like a T-shape?
It is a beautiful and intentional metaphor for the physiology of the brain.
How so?
Visualize the balance scale. You have the horizontal beam, the crossbar, that holds the two plates. The text equates this crossbar with the eyebrows, or rather the structure of the brain right behind them.
Okay.
If that bar isn't level, you can't weigh anything accurately.
So if your eyebrows, meaning your mind art level, you're out of whack.
Think about the brain hemispheres. You have the emotional, intuitive side and the rational, logical side.
The two plates of the scale?
The two plates, exactly. The scale represents the state of perfect mental and emotional stability. The text suggests that spiritual vision, the opening of the third eye, can only happen when the mind and emotions are in perfect equilibrium.
Wow.
If one side is too heavy, too much emotion, or too much rigid logic, the beam tilts and the door remains shut.
That makes the opening of the eyebrows sound a lot less like a cosmetic procedure.
Very much so.
And more like a requirement for clear thinking. The text connects this space between the eyebrows, the globula, to the Ajna chakra.
Correct. The eye of Dagma, or the third eye, and the documents are very clear on this. Opening this eye isn't some magic trick. It's the logical result of evolution. When you balance the opposing forces within you, the eye opens naturally.
And those opposing forces are the snakes, right? The Uraeus serpents on the forehead.
Yes. The text compares them to Ida and Pingala in yoga, the lunar and solar channels.
Or like the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. You could absolutely relate it to that. One is impulse, the other is restriction. One is hot, one is cold. Anubis acts as the stabilizer between these two serpents. He holds attention in the center.
So he's the referee of your own brain chemistry. It's fascinating that Anubis is the one holding that space. But he doesn't work alone. He's part of this massive dramatic soap opera with Osiris.
The Osirian Myth. It's central.
We have to talk about Osiris because the source material goes deep, and frankly, it gets pretty weird.
And you have to remember, Osiris has many layers. The text describes him as a man, a god, a star, Orion, and a force of nature. The Nile, vegetation.
And a civilizing king. The story goes that he just showed up and taught everyone how to farm, how to make wine, all of that. But there's a really intriguing note here about where he came from, the external source hypothesis. It's a fascinating theory. The text mentions that the civilizing ferment of Egypt seems to have appeared, well, somewhat fully formed. So the hypothesis is that Osiris represents a sage, or maybe a group of survivors from another culture, possibly from the East.
Like India? Or Mohenjo-Daro.
Or even from the West, which gets into the Atlantis theories.
Right. The text explicitly mentions Atlantic origins. So Osiris might not just be a god, but a memory of a lost civilization. That adds a whole new layer.
It does. But regardless of his origin, mythologically, Osiris represents the spirit descending into matter. He's the divine spark entering the physical world.
And like any good hero, he gets betrayed by his brother Seth. Now, usually, Seth is the bad guy. The villain. But our expert source here calls him the old schoolmaster. That's a very different vibe.
That is a crucial reframe. Seth is associated with Saturn, and in alchemy and astrology, Saturn is restriction, it's lead, it's hard lessons in time. He's the adversary, yes, but he's necessary.
You need resistance to grow.
You can't have a defined shape without a container.
So Seth plots against Osiris with, get this, 72 conspirators and a queen named Aso. And the trap he builds. This is my favorite detail. He builds a beautiful chest, but it's made to fit Osiris's measurements exactly.
And he brings it to a banquet, a party, and says, whoever fits inside this chest can keep it.
It's a game.
A deadly serious one.
Right. Everyone tries it. Too big, too small. Then Osiris gets in. Why does he even get in? Is he arrogant?
He's innocent. He doesn't suspect that matter can trap him. He lies down and click. It fits like a glove.
And Seth slams the lid, nails it shut, and pours molten lead over it.
Lead.
The metal of Saturn.
Of Seth, exactly.
The heavy, dense metal of restriction. Now, stop and think about the symbolism. A chest that fits you exactly. What is that?
The text calls it a biorobot, which is such a sci-fi term for an ancient myth. It's the physical body.
Precisely. The spirit, Osiris, is tricked into entering the dense physical body, the chest, and once inside, it is trapped by the laws of matter. The lead seal reinforces that. We are all Osiris, trapped in the chest of our biological limitations. The body is a coffin for the spirit. That's a grim way to look at being alive. If the body is a coffin, does the myth give us a way to pick the lock?
The myth is the instruction manual for picking the lock, but it gets worse before it gets better.
It does. The chest gets thrown in the Nile, floats to Byblos, and then a tree grows around it.
A tamarisk tree, yeah.
This is so cinematic. It washes up, a huge tree grows around it, encasing the coffin. It's so beautiful that the local king cuts it down and uses it as a pillar in his palace.
So now Osiris, the spirit trapped in the body, is hidden inside a tree, inside a pillar, in a foreign king's house. It's layers of entrapment.
Buried deeper and deeper.
It represents the spirit becoming completely dormant, and Isis, his wife, who represents intuition, the magical mind, has to go find him.
And when she gets there, she gets a job as a nursemaid for the queen of Byblos. And every night, she takes the queen's baby and puts him in the fireplace.
I know, it sounds horrific if you take it literally.
I mean, yeah.
But look at what she's doing. Isis is trying to burn away the baby's mortality, to make him immortal. It's a high spiritual initiation. But the queen, representing the uninitiated, the fearful mind, walks in, sees her baby in the fire, and screams.
And the scream breaks the spell.
Right. It shows that the uninitiated don't understand spiritual alchemy. They see danger. The initiate sees purification. Because of that fear, the baby remains mortal. It's a warning. Fear kills the transformation.
So Isis gets the chest back. She opens it. She cries. But Seth isn't done. The old schoolmaster has one more lesson.
He finds the body again, hunting by moonlight, and this time he chops it up.
The dismemberment. Seth chops Osiris into 14 pieces and scatters them all over Egypt.
And why 14?
The lunar cycle, right? 14 days of the long moon.
That's one interpretation. The other is that it represents a distribution of initiation centers. The one truth, Osiris, is fragmented. To find it, you have to gather the scattered parts. It's the disintegration of the ego.
So Isis and Anubis go on a scavenger hunt. They find all the pieces, except one. And this is the part that everyone knows, but the text treats it so seriously, they can't find the phallus.
Because it was eaten by fish.
And not just fish. The text specifically names 3 of them, the Lepidotus, the Oxyrhynchus, and the Phagris. Why do we need to know the species?
Because they aren't random. Symbolically, they represent 3 distinct types of lower desires or animal instincts that consume our creative power. Greed, lust, aggression, the bottom feeders of the Nile.
So the generative power of the spirit gets eaten by our base instincts.
Exactly. But here is the profound shift. This is the key to the lock you asked about. Isis cannot find the physical phallus. It's gone.
Right.
So she has to create a magical one, a golden phallus, to conceive Horus.
Why gold? What's that mean?
It symbolizes the transition from physical generation to spiritual regeneration. The initiate is no longer creating biological children. They are creating the Horus within the spiritual child, higher consciousness. They've moved from biological drive to creative spiritual drive. Gold is incorruptible.
Which leads to the raising of the Djed pillar. I've seen that. It looked like a backbone.
It is the backbone of Osiris. Raising the Djed symbolizes restoring stability after the dismemberment. The pillar has 4 levels, representing the 4 planes: physical, energetic, emotional, and mental.
So you're aligning yourself.
You're aligning all 4 parts of your being so the spirit can stand upright again. You are rebuilding the ladder to heaven.
Okay, let's recap this journey. We have the spirit trapped in the body, the chest. Then the ego gets chopped up by life's challenges, the dismemberment. Then we reassemble ourselves on a higher level.
With the golden phallus and the Djed pillar.
And Anubis is guiding this whole operation.
He is. He helps Isis find the pieces. He performs the first embalming. He prepares the vessel. And finally, he waits at the end of the journey. He's standing at the Luminous Door.
This is from the Book of the Dead, chapter 125.
Yes. The door that emanates light. The final threshold.
And there's a test to get in, but it's not a password. The text says, Anubis has to smell you.
I perceive a familiar aroma on you. That is the quote.
That is so wild. He sniffs your soul. I mean, I hope he used the right spiritual deodorant.
It's a metaphor for vibration. Think about scent. You can't fake a scent. You can fake words, you can fake your appearance, but scent is an essence. It emanates from who you are.
Wow.
Anubis is checking if your essence matches the divine. Do you smell like someone who belongs there?
And if you pass the sniff test,
you transform. The text says the soul must become a child again, or transform into the Benu bird, the phoenix.
A phoenix rising from the ashes.
Exactly. And the text makes a beautiful point about direction here, the journey north versus the journey south.
Right. The Nile flows north, so going north is going with the flow.
Yes. The journey north, following the current to the sea, is the journey toward the ocean of life incarnation, birth, the physical world. It's easy. You just float.
Okay.
But the journey south, toward the sacred city of Abydos, is the journey of the phoenix. It is swimming upstream.
Swimming upstream against the current.
It is the essence of the work. The current is the physical world, the biorobot, the noise, the Lepidodus fish trying to eat your energy. To return to the source, you have to swim against all of that.
That feels like a perfect description of trying to be a conscious person in a chaotic world.
Yeah.
It's effort. It's resistance.
It is. But that is why Seth, the resistance, is necessary. Without the current pushing against you, you cannot build the strength to become the phoenix.
So putting it all together, we started with a statue in a museum with weird ears. We found out those ears are for listening to the silence. We learned that our eyebrows are a scale that needs to be balanced. We learned that we're spirits trapped in a custom-fit chest called the body, and that the bad things in life, Seth and his lead seal, are actually the friction we need to wake up.
And that the ultimate goal is to reassemble our scattered parts, stabilize our spine, our Djed pillar, and stand before the luminous door with an essence pure enough to pass.
It really takes the funeral out of funeral rites, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds more like a manual for living a really intense, aware life right now.
That is exactly what these ancient myths were. They weren't just stories to explain where the sun went. They were psychological and spiritual technologies. They were codes.
And when you crack the code, you realize they're talking about you.
Precisely.
I love that. Spiritual technologies. It makes me want to go back to the museum and just stare at Anubis for an hour.
Well, just remember to check your internal balance while you're staring.
And keep the eyebrows level.
Indeed.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, from the breakdown of the ears to the reconstruction of the soul.
Indeed. It's a reminder that in a world of information overload, the darkness of the duat, if you will, stability and inner vision are the only way to find the door.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on. We talked about the chest that Seth made, the one that fit Osiris perfectly. He was comfortable, beautiful, and sealed with lead. So here's the question. What chest are you currently lying in? What definition of yourself fits you so perfectly that you don't realize it's actually keeping you trapped? And, more importantly, are you willing to let yourself be dismantled so you can find your wings?
A powerful question.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.